So hello, we are the Alliance for Paired Kidney Donation. We discuss some commonly asked questions that we see in paired exchange and or with donors or recipients that are willing to donate or are in need of a transplant. So we have Kate. Kate's going to go ahead and be our moderator. We have Elizabeth, who is our donor protection filer. And we have Nicole on here. She is our Health to Hope guru, and she can explain more about that. My name is Krista Sweeney, and I am the lead coordinator for the Alliance for Paired Kidney Donation. So Kate, do you want to go ahead and start asking some of those questions that we've seen over the course of, the last 6 months to a year?
Sure. Thanks, Krista. So I have compiled some questions that were posted on social media, and let's just jump right in. Sims Fam 3 says, I was just diagnosed with early stage kidney disease, and she wants to know if she should look into transplant. Nicole, do you want to answer that?
First, to be diagnosed with early stage kidney disease, a transplant right away generally isn't recommended. What we would say in this case is first to follow up with your provider, right? You want to make sure you're on the same page and that there are understanding the reasons why you might have received this diagnosis. And there are several steps you can take to ensure that you're maintaining appropriate health with an early diagnosis of kidney disease. We know that it's common for people with kidney disease to also have hypertension, to also potentially be diabetic. And so there are several questions your provider can help walk you through to manage other symptoms so that your kidney disease isn't progressing as quickly as it might if you're not addressing those symptoms.
Okay. Thanks, Nicole. Kidney Mom 5 wants to know a little bit more about paired kidney donation. She says she's never heard of it. What is it? Krista, would you like to answer that?
Sure. So paired kidney donation is when a donor and a recipient come together that are looking for a match. They may not match because of blood type or because of HLA, even age. And so they enter a paired exchange in finding the perfect match for them. Initially, when paired exchange was created, that was for pairs that only didn't match each other. Now we fast forward and technology has advanced, and now we're actually putting compatible pairs in now too. So a pair is a donor and a recipient, and those compatible pairs look for a better match. So that way we have better outcomes, so that way the organ lasts longer. So that's really paired exchange. We partner with transplant centers around the country, and we find a match in one location and in another, and we kind of it swaps kidneys. So that's how paired exchange works.
Joe 54 says, asks, can a kidney come from a living donor or just a deceased donor? I thought that was a great question.
Yes, that is a great question. Kidneys can come from both. They can come from deceased or living, and both are incredibly beneficial and, take you off of dialysis and bring you back to a normal lifestyle.
Is there a difference in kidney quality between living and deceased donor kidneys?
So when you're looking at expectancy, graft survival, the graft survival of living donors generally does last longer. If you have a living donor, the likelihood of needing a second kidney, depending on your age, is very slim. Whereas a deceased, again, depending on your age, you may have to have a second transplant. But there's more and more research that's showing that depending on the age and lifestyle of the deceased donor, they may actually be better than some of the living donors that come forward to, save somebody's or change somebody's life. I would say that if you are looking at having the option between a living and a deceased donor kidney offer, you would want to talk with your transplant center team to determine which one's best for you.
Jenny R says, I've heard of the wait list, but don't know how it works. Nicole, would you like to answer that?
Sure, yeah. So the wait list is essentially the waiting time that someone is waiting for a deceased donor kidney. So this is a nice segue into what Krista already shared, but the goal is that the individual waiting for an organ donation, or in this case, kidney, the goal is to find the right kidney for the right person at the right time, right? And so are just many factors, age, certainly, how healthy you are, how long you've been on the waiting list, those sorts of things happen and are really important. Once you are placed on that waiting list, one of the most important things is to maintain your health while you're waiting. So you don't want to be in a position where you're on this waiting list and then your own health begins to decline, or maybe you become a little more relaxed about taking care of your health, because you'll need to be very healthy once you are on the waiting list, so that you're prepared for the timing of when you could get a phone call to say that there is a potential match for you. The timing on the waiting list can vary. On average, and this is across the United States, it is between 3 and 5 years. So it is a pretty considerable amount of time. Each transplant center, those waiting times vary greatly. And again, your individual situation will also determine what that waiting time is for you.
And that's a national waiting list that if you go on it, does it cover the entire United States?
Yes, it is a national waiting list, and it is a waiting list for all organ donation, though about 80% of the individuals on that waiting list are waiting for a kidney donation. So kind of gives you an idea of how many people are, looking for a kidney donor.
That also then really shares the importance of finding a living donor, right? Like you could potentially get sicker waiting for a deceased donor if you don't have a living donor, right?
Paired donation can remove people from the waiting list and shorten their wait time. Did you say that, Krista?
I would say that that's a fair statement, that if you have a living donor that doesn't match you, you generally speaking, depending on PRA and things like that, you'll definitely get a transplant sooner than you would waiting on a wait list in more cases than not.
Greenleaf 98 wants to know what happens if I am denied eligibility for the transplant wait list.
If you are denied, there are a few things that you can do. And to be really honest, this is definitely a space that our medical system can do a better job at supporting clients or patients through this process. Because what happens is you're denied, you're given some reasons why that denial took place for you, but the next steps beyond that denial are not very clear, right? So first, we would suggest to find out why you've been denied. There are usually some specific reasons. We know there are some common factors that no matter who you are, these are kind of the common reasons that someone's denied. And so it's related to lifestyle. So it is, if you have a higher weight for your size and age, so you might be overweight, you may be obese, you might be deemed frail. And so it's very important that, your physical health is up to par. And then finally, mental and emotional health is a huge part of this. You can imagine it can take a toll on someone to go through this process. And so those seem to be the most common reasons that someone is denied for eligibility for that wait list. And so once you have that information, I always tell patients that to use that as data, information on yourself for specifically what can you change to make those improvements, right? Don't let it be something that stops you from continuing to try. You can also try other transplant centers and get a second opinion. But those reasons that I named earlier are the most common that we've seen across the board.
I am Kennedy asks, what do you mean by kidney chains?
In the case of a chain actually starts with a non-directed or what we call Good Samaritan donor. So someone that just comes forward and says, I want to give my kidney. So what that does is that donor gives to a recipient whose recipient's donor gives to the next recipient. And it becomes this chain effect of donation, transplant, donation, transplant. And the largest one that we've done as an organization is 16 because of a Good Samaritan. So because of one act of kindness, we were able to get 16 people transplanted. So, we've already talked about the importance of having a living donor, but even more substantial, those non-directed donors really are the key to unlocking transplants for a number of individuals.
John H. asks, how is Alliance for Paired Kidney Donation different from other matching organizations he's heard about?
Okay. So the Alliance for Paired Kidney Donation is a paired exchange registry. We are a nonprofit. There are two other registries out there currently in the United States. And I think what sets us apart is that we were founded by a transplant surgeon. And then also with his wife, Susan Reese, who was a nurse and in transplant for 25 plus years. And so what that does is it gives us the expertise. We are able to see what happens and we know what happens at the hospital level. We know the emotional toll it takes on patients. We know what the patients are going through. And so we have that drive to make sure transplants happen and that they are quality transplants. And so with that, we also have a Nobel Prize winning algorithm that ensures that you are getting the best match in the system. So out of the pool of all donors and recipients, our algorithm gives the best match. So I think that that's what sets us apart, is that we come from a place of humanitarianism as well as outcome driven. We want to make sure that we are ensuring solid graft survival for these kidneys. So long life expectancy for our patients.
Felicity 75 wants to know, how does paired exchange work and how long does it take to find a match? You touched on a few of those things, but could you tell us a little bit more about the time?
Yeah, so paired exchange, a lot of times pairs that come in are either blood type incompatible, so they don't match, they cannot give to each other, or this might be a second transplant or even a third. If you've had a blood transfusion, you might be what we call sensitized, so a little bit harder to match. When you enter paired exchange, you can expect to wait about 3 months, given the fact that you are not highly sensitized. But in our system right now, the average time to transplant is 102 days. So on average, you're waiting 3.3 months to get a transplant. So not a very long time, but you also have to be patient because there are outliers. And we have had some pairs that are very, very hard to match, blood type O recipients with A donors. And that waiting time is about a year to 16 months. So again, better outcome or better, shorter timeline than the wait list for some centers. So, it's always good to keep all of your options open. Some of our pairs enter paired exchange, but also stay on the wait list. So that way, if they get an offer, they can talk with their transplant team and determine what is the best pathway for them. So they may take the deceased organ, depending on what type of donor they have and what their situation is, if they're highly sensitized, or they may opt to stay in paired exchange and get that living kidney donor transplant. So again, those are things that you would discuss with your transplant team. They are the experts and they are also looking out for your best interest as a recipient.
Could you tell us a little bit more about how our network works around the nation, how many transplant centers we work with, and how somebody might be able to find a transplant center that works with APKD specifically?
Yeah. So we work with about 60 transplant centers in the continental US. We are, all over the country. And then if you wanted to learn more, we are on paireddonation.org, where you can learn more about the Alliance for Paired Kidney Donation as a registry. In addition to that, We do some global work as well. We do bring some pairs in from other countries into the United States to be evaluated and get transplanted too. So, yeah. And then we also offer things like remote donation. Remote donation is where you have a willing donor, but they're not in your state. So we work with our transplant partners to make sure that we can get that transplant done as well. So for example, I need a kidney and I'm in Ohio and my sister lives in Florida. We can work with our transplant partners in Florida to have my sister do her donation in Florida to bring the kidney to me in Ohio. So we keep things very simple on the donor. The goal is to keep donors around their support team, to keep recipients with their support teams, to ensure the best outcome, to make sure we're healing properly, all of those things. So there's lots of options and configurations in paired exchange.
Sam PKD wants to know, what if I have a person who's willing to donate a kidney to me, but we are not medically compatible? And at the same time, my kidney journey as something that's related, what does it mean to be compatible or incompatible?
Yeah. So if you're compatible, that means you match. If you are incompatible, that might mean that you don't match for a number of reasons. Maybe more times than not, it's blood type. Then it could be sensitivities that you would risk rejection if that kidney went into your body. So the kidney would die. Then there are other things like size. So if I'm a very large individual, I'm going to need a large volume kidney, and maybe my donor is really small, maybe 5 foot and I'm 6'5". That would be another reason. So anatomy would be another reason to be considered incompatible. And then there are other things like age that you're looking at, quality. If I'm a younger donor, I'm going to want a really good HLA match, and that's just kind of the genetic makeup for simple terms there. And so those are the reasons why you would enter paired exchange. So whether you're compatible or incompatible, you would enter paired exchange for those reasons, trying to either find your match that you don't have or find a better match.
So you're saying that if even if a pair happens to be medically compatible, you still think it's a good idea for them to enter into a paired exchange because they might find a better match for their kidney based on some of those?
So statistically, yes, you could potentially find a better match. And now you have the opportunity to help more people because you're creating a chain. So rather than doing, I do match my sister, but so that's one transplant, but then my sister might match somebody and then their person might match me that we didn't match. So with compatible donation, then you're helping more people get transplanted. Now, again, that's something that you might want to talk to your transplant team about, because if you're a perfect match, you would not go into paired exchange. So, if you are a perfect HLA, blood type, age, all of those things, you would just do that sister to sister or friend to, however that works. But if there are some things that aren't quite ideal, even though you match, you might find a better opportunity and longer graft survival then. And so again, those are things that you can talk to your transplant team about to determine if it's appropriate for you.
Sandy B says, I've been told I'm not healthy enough to undergo a kidney transplant. And she wants to know if we offer any resources that could improve her overall health.
So we have designed a program to specifically help and support individuals who fall into this category. And it's called Health to Hope. It's tailored to meet the needs of someone who has kidney disease and has been denied eligibility for the wait list. And so what we do is we provide very specific resources for their situation. It's resources and personalized coaching. And that falls under those categories of nutrition, fitness, and mental health. Currently, 80% of the participants who complete our program have been able to get relisted for that waiting list and then receive the transplant. So it is something that has been proven to be extremely beneficial. And we are happy to, meet with anyone who's interested and to kind of share further on how we can help them.
Well, that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing about that. So here's a big question that I see, not just from Henry Dell, who asked this question specifically, but a lot of people are concerned about this on social media. He says, I need a kidney, but I don't have a donor. What should I do?
Yeah, that is a huge problem and topic that we see a lot. And one of the things that I tell donors when they do call is, have you reached out to your loved ones and friends and family? You know, a lot of people sign on their driver's license, yes, I'm willing to donate an organ, but they don't understand that you're only using one kidney, and that you can actually, that other kidney, we say share your spare, you can give that while you're still living. And I always say the question, you know, people don't understand kidney disease. And so really raising awareness, the question's no if you don't ask. So asking your friends, asking your family, I need a kidney, would you be willing to donate for me? It's safe. And I think we'll talk about the health risks for donors a little bit later, but getting that out there and having those conversations, putting it on your social media. I need a kidney. I need a living donor kidney. You can do this. It is safe. Giving them the information that they need. In addition, there are some organizations that help recipients find kidney donors. Kidneys for Communities is one that comes off the top of my head, where they look at specific communities. So if you're a first responder, if you are an educator, if you are a nurse, MIT, different communities they help you build a profile, and they help you advocate for yourself and bring donors in with that specific community. So even kiddos. So pediatrics is another community that Kidneys for Communities works with. And then there are several others too. If you get online and Google search, you can find more organizations, but really it is talking within your network. You know, where do you go? Do you visit a restaurant regularly? Do you go to the library? We had a coffee shop donor, the true story. A recipient went into a coffee shop all the time and then got to talking with his barista. And next thing you know, the barista said, you need a kidney? I'll give you my kidney. We see a lot of church donors putting it out on that newsletter, I need a kidney. So looking at where you go and how to network and raising awareness and being open about your journey and your need for an organ is the best way, in all honesty, to get a donor to come forward for you.
Okay, that's all very helpful. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about the donor side of things. Megan F97 wants to know, is it safe to donate a kidney? And how will her life change?
Yes. So it is absolutely safe to donate a kidney. You as a donor will go through a pretty rigorous evaluation to ensure that you are not at risk later for kidney disease. So they're going to do a ton of lab work. They're going to do CT scans to look at your kidney in itself. You're going to do urine samples, echocardiograms, all this whole laundry list of things to make sure that you are safe to donate, and that your risk for kidney disease later in life as a donor is very, very minimal, if at all. And then from there, really the only lifestyle change that you'll have is during your healing process. You have to take it easy. You can't partake in rigorous activities. You can't lift more than 8 pounds, things like that. But once you're healed, you can still have children. You can still go back to the gym. Your life resumes back to normal post donation. You know, with technology too, there are different types of donations. You have laparoscopic, you have robotic, and you can still opt for an open donor surgery as well. Those are a little bit larger, but you know, technology has come such a long way that the donor surgery really is pretty, you know, you're still going to be in pain. I mean, it's a surgery, but your healing time and in that you will get back to normal. The most common donor complication, I would say, is sometimes donors do end up with a hernia. That's the most common donor complication, is a hernia. And that's based on age and some factors prior to, and then also how did they heal? Did they push it? So sometimes when after that first week, 2 weeks, donors feel great and they jump right back in. And then, fast forward a couple of months and they're like, oh, something's not right. And it's a hernia. So you want to follow your team's instructions and guidelines post donation. But other than that, you will get back to normal life, no problem.
Atlanta, 1996, just kind of piggybacking off of your answer there, wants to know, won't I be weak and unhealthy after donating a kidney?
No, we say recovery 4 to 6 weeks. And again, your transplant team will, once you have determined which type of donor nephrectomy is the name of the surgery, once you determine which one you're going to do, they'll have a very specific instruction list for you to follow post donation to make sure that you have the healthiest road of recovery possible. And then from there, it's pretty much back to normal life.
How does it work if you remove, we were born with 2 kidneys. So if you take one away, what happens there? How does the body recuperate and make up for that?
Yes, so what they do when you are in your evaluation, they actually look at both of your kidneys and they look at which one is the stronger kidney, which one's doing the most work, and that is the kidney that you keep. And so then once you get rid of the other one, your kidney just takes over and does all of the work, and it's completely healthy and fine, and you won't even know that you donated it, besides a scar. And some of those scars are very, very teeny tiny. And again, depending on which surgery you opt for, and that's something that you can talk to your transplant team about. You can still get pregnant. You do not need a special diet. Obviously, we want to promote health and wellness, and we want you to eat healthy and, continue working out and things like that. So that way you don't develop those factors that Nicole had talked about, diabetes, obesity, and things like that. So you want to maintain a healthy lifestyle. But in terms of restrictions, because you donated, there are none.
Let's turn to Elizabeth, who's our donor protection program coordinator. And Joel Schultz wants to know, well, he says that he's heard it's expensive to donate a kidney. And do we offer any supports?
Our donor protection program covers reimbursement through lost wages, travel expenses, and dependent care expenses. And oftentimes the donor will have their surgery at the recipient center. And so they might have to drive a distance or fly out there, and they need to bring someone with them to take care of them after surgery. And so that can really build up. They have to pay for food, the gas mileage, the flight expense, all of that can build up. So we can reimburse for all that type of expense. And additionally, you have to take a good chunk of time off of work to recover from the surgery. And so not every employer offers time off of PTO. So we make sure that we can cover your time or the donor's time so that they don't have a huge gap in their income.
I was just going to ask how much could you tell people how much we cover for that time off and some of those other expenses?
Yeah, absolutely. So for lost wages, we can cover up to $10,000 of lost wages and up to 4 weeks out of work. And then for travel, for the donor and their support person, we can cover up to $4,500 of travel expenses. And that we can also cover dependent care expenses, which is folded into that travel budget.
What sort of things does dependent care encompass?
We can cover a babysitter for the donor's children, or a daycare for their children, so they have some time to recover when they might normally be taking care of their kids. If you have a pet and they're kind of large and you need someone to walk them and take care of them while you're recovering so you don't get injured, we can cover that as well. And if you're taking care of an older relative or anything like that, we can cover the expense of having someone else come in and take care of that while the donor is recovering.
Elizabeth, while you're talking about costs, it made me think, the donors do, I mean, they will incur some costs going to and from transplant center. And then depending on where their location is, they may end up needing some wage or travel reimbursement. And I think that that's fantastic that we do that. One of the questions that I get sometimes is, I'm a donor and I don't have insurance. So what does that mean? And there are some centers that will still do an evaluation, even though you do not have insurance, because the cost of transplant goes on the recipient's insurance. So as a donor, the only expenses that I'm going to have as a donor are my wage and travel, and then possibly dependent care or child care. But in terms of my insurance, a lot of centers will request that you have insurance, some don't, but that does not go on your insurance as a donor, that goes on the recipient's insurance. So as a donor, I think that that would also maybe persuade me to help somebody else, knowing that it's not a cost to me, especially if I have a $5,000 deductible, all of those things that come along with insurance. I don't have to worry about that as a donor.
So that 1664 wants to know, is a DPP just for the donor, or can their support person also get
Yeah, so I've already kind of touched on this, but we do travel reimbursement. And like I mentioned, the support person is required by, I think, all transplant centers to take care of the donor, make sure they can recover and, have someone there. And so we can reimburse for that support person's travel expenses as well. And if that support person is coming in from a different city from the donor, if, my sister is taking care of me and she lives somewhere else and has to fly in, that can be covered. So we can absolutely help out the support person as well.
But Becky Owens 99 asks, is there an approval or application process for the donor protection program?
No, there is no approval process. There aren't any requirements or anything like that. All we need is a certain amount of paperwork for lost wages and travel. And as long as you get that in on time, you'll get reimbursement.
Krista mentioned that most donors, in order to be able to be healthy enough to donate a kidney, probably won't need a kidney in the future. But do we offer any sort of coverage in case the donor needs a kidney in the future? Very unlikely. But also if one of their family members needs a kidney and they would have wanted to donate to them, but now they just have one kidney. What does the donor protection program have to say about that?
Yeah, definitely. So we offer a kidney pledge. We actually offer 3 different types. So we offer a family kidney pledge that basically says, for a non-directed donor, since they're donating now, but in the future, like you mentioned, if their grandparent or their mother or brother needs a kidney, we will put that recipient into our system and find them a kidney that way. And there's also the advanced donor pledge, which is if, your nephew has kidney disease, but he doesn't need one right now. He doesn't need a transplant right now, but in the future he might. You can list that person on the advanced pledge, and we'll do the same thing as with the family pledge and find that recipient a kidney, since that non-directed donor is doing it right now. And our last kidney pledge is a friend kidney pledge, where you can list, I think it's 5 different friends, and they could be eligible in the future to get a kidney because of the non-directed donor. We'll put them into our system and make sure they get a transplant. Do get priority and try to get them like Krista has said many times, the perfect match, the most ideal match for them, and get them priority.
Okay, well, that covers it for our social media questions. Is there anything else that any of you want to add?
No, I think we should just direct donors and recipients to pairdonation.org. Again, if you are in the need of a kidney, I think the very first step is reaching out to your family, friends, your network. And then again, picking the appropriate pathway for you, having conversations with your primary care physicians, talking to your transplant team and going from there. And then, you know, if you need some other resources, I think Nicole, Health to Hope is right there.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll be able to share our contact information if there's questions that people have. And as Krista said, to direct you to the website where you can find a lot more information.
Perfect. Well, thanks, everybody. This has been great. Thanks for joining us.